This video is going to show you how to make some chocolate brownies. Now the first thing that you actually need to do is bring a small amount of boiling water or water up to the boil on the hob. Keep it on a low heat. It doesn't have to be boiling rapidly, and as you can see I've actually got, or you may not be able to see, but I've actually got less than half a pan of water in there, because what we don't want is boiling water coming up the sides of the bowl and going into the bowl, because that will actually prevent the chocolate from melting properly. It seems quite a weird idea to think about some water getting into the chocolate will stop it melting, but that is what will happen. So I've got my pan there with a small amount of water on boiling, and into my mixing bowl I have put 100 grams of chocolate, which I've actually broken up into smaller pieces, and 100 grams of margarine. So I'm just gently going to melt those together. Now, if you wanted to, if you prefer to melt your chocolate in the microwave, you could just melt your chocolate straight off into the microwave and then add your margarine straight away, and the heat of that would actually melt the margarine into it. But just for the purposes of showing you how to do this, I'm going to do this over the hob today. So quite quickly you can see that that's actually melted. Now I'm not going to leave it on there too long because I don't want it to get hot, otherwise it may curdle the eggs when I add those. So I'm just going to lift that off and turn off the hob. So while you're actually waiting for that to cool, you could then prepare the tin that you're going to actually cook these in. So I've just got a Swiss roll tin here, so just a small roasting size tin, and I put some greaseproof paper into there. Now I should have shown you how to do that, and I have oiled it, so I'm not going to take it back out. But if you cut a piece of greaseproof paper so it's just a bit larger than the tin, cut up in the corners. So you can place your tin onto the greaseproof paper, cut up towards the corners, pop it in, then your corners will be in the right place and you can just actually grease over it. So we're just leaving this to cool down for a couple of minutes, which I've done. While that's also been cooling down, I have put the oven on, so I've popped that on to gas mark 6, which is 200 degrees Celsius. So now it's cooled down a bit, we're going to crack the eggs in. That's what I said, you don't want to do that when it's too warm, otherwise they will actually start to scramble in there, which is not what we want to happen. So we're just going to mix those in, as you can see, and then the next stage is to add our flour and sugar. So I've already got those weighed out, 100 grams of each of those, and those also then go into the mixing bowl, and we're just going to gently mix it all around. Now you could, if you wanted to, add some pecan nuts, add some extra cocoa powder if you wanted to make them more chocolatey. You could add some chocolate chips. So there's lots of things that you could actually add to this mixture. I'm keeping this one plain, but as I said, you could put some other additions in. This is a very simple brownie mixture because we don't have a lot of time in school to actually do one of the more traditional ones, but it does actually taste just as good. So I've mixed everything into there. As I said, I'm not putting anything else in. So now it's time to put it into your tin. So we can just actually pour the mixture in. Now, depending on the chocolate that you've used will very much then depend on the thickness of this mixture. If you've used something like a cooking chocolate, it will be a lot runnier, like mine is here. If you've used something like your Cadbury's Dairy Milk, that does tend to actually stay as a bit of a thicker mixture. And if you've added some cocoa powder in, then that will also thicken up your mixture. So we can see I don't need to actually spread that around because it's actually gone right into the edges. So I'm going to pop that into the oven now for about 15 minutes. So your brownie will be cooked when it feels nice and soft to the touch. What you need to do then very carefully is lift it out of the pan. You can grab hold of the greaseproof paper if you've kept enough of a overlap on that, and then just actually lift it out and just leave it to cool off a bit. What you need to decide then is how many pieces you want to actually cut it into, and I would actually tend to start in the middle. So if, for example, you wanted to cut this into 12 pieces, cut down the middle first of all, and then cut each of those halves into half, and that means then you have generally got the same sort of size brownies. And then if you want, obviously you can't cut it in half if you're going to do 3 in the other direction, but you should then have a good idea of where to make the cuts to make your brownies the same size. They can then be lifted off and put into a container once they've cooled down, and they will be okay to eat then for the next few days.